What's going on, everybody? Sam Brown here at Elite FTS, coming to you with Mr. Tony Montgomery today, going over warming up. Warming up has always been kind of one of those things that people have asked us specifically for them. Like, what would this warm-up be good for, or should I do this in my warm-up? Tony's here to kind of break the bullshit and try to give you a good understanding of why you do certain things in a warm-up and how you do them. So Tony, take it away.
Yeah, so warming up can encompass a lot of things, but we want to think about like what are our hubs of warming up, what are the things that we really want to focus on, and that's going to be stability and mobility for the most part. But we also want to think about like body temperature, right? Being able to improve someone's core temperature has been shown throughout the literature to improve their ability to perform at a high level. As soon as that core temperature gets too high or too low, their ability to recruit the muscles that they need to recruit and be able to perform has been shown to decrease anywhere from like 20 to 30%. Wow. So you just want to start a warm up with some type of exercise, calisthenic, or something to improve the core temperature of the body. So like a 5 minutes on an Aerodyne bike or 5 minutes on a treadmill. And that time you can also spend with your athlete trying to assess where they are sympathetically, parasympathetically, where their headset is, and then you can kind of dictate where their training is going to be as well. So that 5 minutes gives you a lot of subjective feedback from your athlete. And then from there, right, if it's a mobility issue, we want to think, well, how can we improve someone's mobility? And something that gets brought up a lot is like static stretching. Should we static stretch? And that's been demystified a lot by a lot of the research, right? But if you look at some of the newer research that's coming out, it's showing that static stretching actually doesn't decrease performance as much as people thought it did, right? Learning how to read the literature, learn how to read the science can tell you a lot about what's going on. A lot of the stretching they did before that showed a decrease in performance was anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes. What they're showing now is you can do a static stretch between 20 and 30 seconds to improve that range of motion without actually decreasing performance. But you want to do that by static stretching first, then follow that up with a dynamic movement. So we want to think about how can we improve mobility, right? And we're going to do that through some type of static stretching, some type of foam rolling, like something along those lines, and then that's going to allow you to access a fuller range of motion. Then once you access that fuller range of motion, you want to be able to put some type of load on it so that your body accepts that range of motion. If you think about the pain mechanics and some of the pain research, right, having our body connect with our ability to get into those end ranges under load is going to allow it to have that drive to get there whenever you're training. So we want to focus on those two things, right? And that's going to be the mobility component of it. Then we're going to think about how can we add in stability if our person needs stability, right? And how do you know if someone needs stability is a great thing to think about. And you'll have those people who stretch a lot and they can like put their knee up to their head and they're like, oh, I'm really tight. It's like, well, you're not tight. Clearly you're not tight because you can do this type of stretch and you lack stability. That's lack of stability. It brings in a sense of tightness. So we want to find exercises that create stability. And some of the key hubs of stability that a person needs to think about is like shoulder stability. How can we reinforce better shoulder stability? And then how can we reinforce better hip stability? So thinking about that and what the athlete needs, right? Needs analysis always needs to be done so that we can incorporate a specific warm-up for them. Then we can start to pick those stability exercises along with their actual workout to start incorporating them to move, to get the muscles flowing. So it's a warm-up, it's some type of mobility if they need it, then it's some type of stability along with the actual exercise. So I like to think of it as 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and then they repeat that. D is the actual compound movement, right? So for somebody doing bench press, they can do kettlebell bottoms up press, kettlebell windmills, and maybe some type of lat or pec stretch followed by the bench press. And then just repeat that and then add maybe a 25 or add a plate, right? And that's the way they want to think about categorizing their exercises, because once you get to that bench press, you'll know if those exercises are giving you the movement that you need in order for you to perform, right? So, and then it's understanding like, well, what are the asymmetries that a power lifter or strength athlete start to build up, right? And we're always in this retracted position for bench press. We're always in this retracted position and pulling down for squat and things of that nature. We're never really thinking about shoulder protraction and working that glenohumeral joint through its entire range of motion. So one of the things we like to think about is like what muscles can be turned off if we're constantly in this retracted position. And then you're going to think like, okay, serratus anterior and things along those nature that doesn't really get talked about a lot. So one of my key exercises that I do that I got from like Jordan Shallow is the, this these gatekeeper exercises of like, this exercise, if I can stabilize this, I feel really good, I'm able to perform, is going to be the bottoms up kettlebell press. But we want to make sure that we perform that correctly. So we're going to have Emma here demonstrate how to do a proper kettlebells.
Let's do it.
Yep, so go ahead and grab the kettlebell here, Emma, and we'll go with the left arm because that's your weakest arm, so we can embarrass you on camera. All right, so what they're going to really want to focus on doing, turn sideways here, right, is you'll see do a regular bottoms up press how you normally would do it, right? So do it a little bit slower. So you see elbows down by their side, and as she presses up, the elbow is going to start to flare out and then come back through. What we really want to focus on is trying to pull this shoulder blade out as much as we can, and that's going to activate her serratus anterior, which is in here, and that's what stabilizes a lot of the bench press that we tend to miss out on, right? Elbow is going to be up, and she's going to press in a straight line as much as possible, right? So it's not winging out anymore. It's pushing that shoulder blade forward and then pressing in a straight line, and wherever that range of motion, you can go back down, that's your active range of motion. That's going to tell you where that person's deficient at within that range of motion. Now, if we can do some breath work and we can open up that rib cage as the breath ties into the rib and the diaphragm, right, that can extend that range of motion more and more, and we can show some drills on that. But we're really thinking about how can we engage the serratus anterior, because that's the thing that's often neglected whenever we're thinking about bench press or strength athletes or anything like that. And that's one of my main hubs when it comes to stability within the shoulder movement and any type of bench pressing or any type of upper body. If she can do this and go through a full range of motion and have stability, then she's really good to do any type of bench pressing or any type of overhead pressing. Now, if she can't, then we have to understand those are some of the limits in what she's able to do, right? If she can only have her arm go up here without it winging, then that's telling us any type of overhead press work needs to be done more in a plane that's not straight up and down, but it's just more diagonal. That way there's not as much stress in that movement, and then we can slowly work our way up. We don't want to force ranges of motion. We want to maintain strength within those. And then the next thing, you can go ahead and put that down, we want to think about is like, if we're doing lower body stuff, how can we stabilize the pelvis? How can we stabilize the hips and actively get those muscles working synergistically? And you can do this really well with like a lion leg curl, or you can do it with a back extension, right? So we're going to go ahead and line up here on the back extension, and we want to think, well, what stabilizes the pelvis, and what are one of the main contributors that we neglect when we're stabilizing the pelvis? And a lot of it is the adductors. So our adductor magnus or adductor brevis are really good stabilizers of the pelvis. So we're trying to work those as much as we can, but also warm up the hamstrings, the glutes, and the lower back. So we're going to do single leg back extensions, right? So she's going to drop one leg off behind the pad. Yep, and then extend all the way out. Like a back extension. Yep. So right here, what you'll notice is she has to maintain this hip stability by keeping it down, because that leg's not there to stabilize it anymore. So she actually has to stabilize through her glutes and through her adductor magnus back there and adductor brevis. So as she does the exercise, she's going to go down, right? And this is stabilizing really hard to make sure that it's not swinging one way or the other. And then she comes back up, and she's warming up all those muscles that stabilize you in the bottom of a squat or any position like that. Back down, right? Focusing on keeping that out as much as you can, and then squeezing back up, right? So this is all about building stability. You're good there.
And this is what's cool about that is, I mean, obviously with Emma, she's super strong, but
yeah,
if you have a client that may have a certain weakness or a capacity to move in a certain way, you can kind of pick that up, because you can see somebody's ability to actually get into that extension,
right,
which they may be lacking. You may see that they start getting into that lower back, or they just can't get into that position. And as their coach, you can kind of make that mental note, be like, all right, that's something we definitely need to work on for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, picking your exercises to warm up shouldn't just be random thought processes. Yeah. They should be like, what exercises contribute to the lift, and what's going to give me a very holistic approach on all the dynamics, right? If she couldn't pull all the way through, or if her hips started to come up, she's going to have a hard time stabilizing. If she can't stabilize with one leg, how is she going to be able to stabilize with two, right? It's going to create that bilateral deficiency, and that's going to create a lot of contingencies in how she adjusts her squats to allow for that to stabilize without the actual muscles being able to stabilize. So you want to make sure that you're picking exercises that actually allow you to concretely see what other mechanisms within that joint are allowing you to build those movements out, and then what can you see out of those deficiencies, right? Bottoms up presses, right? If she can't get that arm overhead, should she ever take a weight overhead? The answer is going to be no. So then we need to pick things to facilitate better improvements in that range of motion. Same thing here. If she can't stabilize those hips, well, then we got to pick exercises. She may be doing single leg unilateral stuff until she creates better stability with her hips before we put her in anything bilateral. And that can be for a lot of those things, right? You have to earn the right to lift the things that you're going to be lifting, and this is the first start to do that.
Absolutely. And I think something that needs to get pointed out for the audience at home is you are choosing unilateral exercises as gatekeepers to show your clients, your athletes, competencies in those positions. I think a lot of people, when they think of warm-up, they're like, oh, it's just the bar. You just do the bar for reps, right? You're actually using it as a diagnostic tool.
Has to be.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is much smarter than the majority of when you hear warm-up. Right. Like you need to make sure everything makes sense in your programming. You're doing everything for a reason.
Yeah.
If you polled a lot of people that may be watching this video and say, hey, why are you doing this for your warm-up? I think they would say, I don't know.
Saw someone else do it.
I saw somebody else do it, right? So you're taking the side of, okay, everything has to be detail oriented towards the person you're working with, and you need to have a reason for everything that you're doing everything for, right?
And not only that, but you're also thinking about what exercises can I take from this warm-up and create into accessories and put them under load so they can get stronger and better. So if she has an issue with single leg back extensions as a warm-up, I can put that in her program and start getting that really strong so those deficiencies go away. The idea of like picking exercises that you can't actually load, like this idea of, we're trying to fix any type of anti-flexion, anti-rotation. So we're gonna do body weight stuff. It's like, well, the body weight stuff's not the issue. It's when you're under load that's the issue. So can we load these movements in your warm-up? And if we can and they get better, then let's add those warm-ups into your workout, so by the time you have to come back to those warm-ups, you don't need them anymore because they're facilitated within your accessories that you pick, right? The idea of just picking accessories for the sake of accessories shouldn't exist anymore. It's right, can I do tricep extensions? Like, yeah, you can do tricep extensions, but what can give you the best bang for your buck in tricep extensions? Like, do you really just want to isolate your tricep, or do you want healthier shoulders as well, right? So if I'm doing push downs, I'm isolating my triceps, but if I go here and do overhead tricep extensions by rotating that shoulder blade along its axis and being able to facilitate stability through that position, I'm gonna have healthier shoulders, plus I'm getting the tricep work, right? And you can do that in a warm-up, and then if you see the deficiencies, you can add that into their actual accessories at the end of the day. So it's always a dual purpose kind of choice when you're thinking about warming up and accessories and stuff like that. They should be intermingling into each other.